Logan writer-director James Mangold again has spoken about his preference to do a stand-alone Swamp Thing movie. He wants to make a compelling character piece of storytelling. It's something that I want to see. But James Mangold has recently said it, because I saw it up on social media yesterday, and said it when he was first announced to be doing a Swamp Thing movie, that the studio, aka DC Studios and WB, want to make a franchise out of Swamp Thing. What does that mean? I'm assuming they want Swamp Thing in the DCU, in the Gods and Monsters franchise, right? In the continuity that David Cornsworth's Superman is in. I would like to see Swamp Thing there as well. Is there a possibility that James Mangold's Swamp Thing movie is going to be part of the DCU, but James can make, a standalone compelling movie, and then they can use the character for other stuff? I think you can do both things at the same time. Now, whatever you want to call him, Brandon Davis, who's a movie pundit, a big MCU shill, didn't like James Mangold saying this. But, it's all very well being all shilly about franchises, about the DCU, the MCU, Disney Star Wars. But there's a problem with that. Because once you do that, once you just want franchises, then it's just this plastic thing. And it's the next one, and it's the next one. So I agree with James Mangold. Now, the problem is with James, he's going to be doing his Star Wars project first, which means we won't be seeing this Swamp Thing movie in the DCU. I don't think we'd see it again like the Batman movie, probably not till 2028, 2029. That's a long time, and this dude who's now 52 ain't getting any younger. That's why I worry about the length of these projects. Will we ever see this Swamp Thing movie? Because, when James Mangold says that he wants to do a standalone movie, but the studio want to, franchise the hell out of Swamp Thing, are they disagreeing? Or, as I suggested, can James just make a standalone movie? Then once James has set him up, James Mangold, not James Gunn, then James Gunn can do whatever he wants with him. Well, I hope they come to some, natural agreement, because we have had a Swamp Thing movie before, a cheapy one that I've never even watched before. I know one exists, I think, but we never had a proper cinematic Swamp Thing movie. The problem with James Mangold, on the outside, he looks like a respectable auteur who wrote and directed Logan, which was a great movie, one of the great CBMs, right? I think we can all agree on that. You should see the black and white version as well. Even better than the colour version. But in recent years, since doing Logan, he's jumped on making plastic, empty movies for Disney. Like the recent Indiana Jones film wasn't something that's good for James Mangold's CV. And now he's making a Star Wars movie for Disney Star Wars. It's not exactly a great thing to be associated with Disney Star Wars. Is that actually something that's also going to ever happen, considering Kathleen Kennedy's record with announcing projects that never happen? We know that The Mandalorian and Grogu has finished shooting. It's going to be released, you would assume. We're not here to talk about Star Wars, but the James Mangold Swamp Thing situation is interesting. I hope we get the movie, and I hope we get a standalone movie, and I hope for once in a long time James Mangold goes back to being an auteur. Now, talking about auteurs, Deadline were talking about Warner Brothers Discovery's 2025 slate and how it's promoting and pushing the movie auteur director. And one of those auteur directors, or who they claimed was an auteur director, is James Gunn with his Superman movie. I'm not too sure you can call James Gunn an auteur. I think he's a guy who does it his way. He's a guy who does the same thing again and again. I don't think he has a plan B or a plan C. He has one way of doing movies, and thus far I haven't seen anything different from James Gunn. Let's see what he does with this Superman movie. But again, this isn't really just a standalone Superman movie. There's other DC characters in it. Now, he claims they're part of Superman's story and journey, and I hope that's the case. But it's no surprise to me that this is about Superman teaching these DC heroes to do things in a better, more uplifting, peaceful, heroic way. And again, it wouldn't surprise me if Superman and the rest of these DC heroes at the end of this movie all walk along a line, with their chests out, just like in the Suicide Squad, just like in Guardians of the Galaxy. As I say, I've always seen James Gunn as a talented writer-director, but someone who's also a one-trick pony. I'm interested that Warner Brothers and Deadline are promoting this guy as an auteur. Now, we know Warner Brothers' history. When I was a kid growing up, they loved the auteur. Most studios did. That's the way movies were made back then. But something changed with the MCU. And don't forget, James Gunn originates from the Marvel Cinematic Universe with his Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So, at the end of the day, I wouldn't call James Gunn an auteur. As I say, he's a director who makes his own stuff from his own mind, but that doesn't necessarily make you an auteur. I would say that Zack Snyder is more of an auteur than James Gunn. James Gunn is a studio man, while Tom Cruise and Christopher Nolan were going, hell for leather when the studios were trying to create the streaming coup, and they were making everything day and date. When Nolan and Cruise said no, James Gunn was fine for his film The Suicide Squad to be day and date, which made it make no money in the movie theatre. There was a coup during the COVID pandemic to transfer everything from cinemas onto streaming, to do pay-per-view and the rest of it, and close down cinemas. That was the plan, and because of great people like Christopher Nolan and Tom Cruise, it was never allowed to happen. Tom Cruise had to threaten litigation to stop Paramount from doing the same thing to Top Gun Maverick. And even the studio, why are you making this film? No one's going to watch it, blah, blah, blah. Tom Cruise believed in it, and it was a huge $1 billion plus hit. It's a great sequel. I think Top Gun Maverick's one of the greatest, sequels. I think he's up there with The Dark Knight in terms for Top Gun. I never thought a Top Gun sequel would even work. So, thank the gods, thank the, scripted entertainment gods for people like Christopher Nolan and Tom Cruise. But James Gunn is a studio person, so no, I don't think he's an auteur. But it's funny that Warner Brothers are trying to push him as an auteur. They don't like the reputation of not respecting people's creative freedom. Of course, they have that reputation after what we all know they did to Zack Snyder. But Mick, this is a new leadership. This is David Zaslav at Discovery. The people who did what they did to Snyder, I keep on telling you this every day, are hiding in that studio in plain sight. And if you don't believe that, if you don't understand that, you haven't been paying attention. I want to thank you all, or the 5 of you who like my videos on YouTube, who come onto Instagram, whatever platform you're watching me on. My videos are not professional, they're not edited. I use a cheap 50 quid HD camera. I have no microphone, as you can see. I use the microphone that's built in to my cheap 50 quid HD camera. Because I believe when I choose who to watch, what content creators to watch and consume, I don't care about the editing, the quality of the picture. All I care about is the person's personality and what they have to say. That's how I make my choice of content creators. And I think that's the way it should be. It's not the way it is. It's like, it's interesting these days. People talk about, when they talk about movies and streaming, they talk more about cinematography and VFX than they do about the characters and the storytelling. That's not me. All I care is about characterizations and great stories executed in a great, vibrant way. So I do want to thank you all for coming in. Not many of you come in, but those of you who do come in, my views and subs are slightly going up on YouTube, so I'm very grateful for that. Not by much, I'm not going to go viral anytime soon, but considering my content is so unprofessional, I am very, very grateful whoever decides to tune in and give me support. Now back to the matter at hand, because in the next final 5 minutes of this video, I want to go back to our daily conversation of DC Studios and Superman, because it's very, very interesting. By the way, before we begin our conversation, Jenna Swark, who was a great collaborator as a director on Smallville and directed the Helen Slater Supergirl movie back in 1984, has passed away. So many, many thoughts to his friends and his family. Jenna was a great, talented lad. Anyway, back to James Gunn's Superman and DC Studios. This is supposed to be the launch pad. Now, I was interested yesterday because I uploaded a video about, the Superman movie making as much box office globally as Man of Steel. Maybe even lower, maybe higher. We don't know at this time. I think it's a bit, I think it's too early for tracking at this stage, if I'm being honest with you all. But other videos were saying, ooh, Superman's going to make lots of money. Superman's going to make more than Man of Steel because of 600 to 700. So they're focusing on the 700 part. What 600 to 700 actually means, it means you'll be lucky if it gets up to 700 at this stage. I think it's interesting. I said this yesterday because the record views it had for its trailer, should mean it should be tracking for around 800 to a billion, or at least 850 to 900. It should be, but it's not even doing that, which is interesting to me. So I think what I'm going to say, which I've said from the very beginning, July the 11th can't come soon enough so we can all find, so the debate can end. So if it's successful and it's a great movie, well done. I'll give it the compliments it deserves because it's a Superman film. I want it to do well. But we can't wish for something to be well. We can't hope that something's going to do well and then it doesn't do well and we live in denial. It's an interesting situation, even as a Superman fan. I'm watching it from the outside and I think there's very, very interesting situations around it. For example, since DC Studios was launched, there's all these kind of DC accounts that have come out of nowhere. Are they studio accounts in plain sight? Or are these run by genuine DC fans? Well, I tell you what, there's certainly suddenly, since the launch of DC Studios, a lot of shills about. And shills, and I keep on saying this, by the way, on my social media, shills are the worst part of any fandom. I can handle toxic, angry, frustrated fans because they're natural emotions to have, especially over entertainment today. But someone who just sits there saying, oh my God, this is the bestest thing ever. It's interesting as well, we had the Daredevil trailer yesterday, didn't we? Now, I don't have access to Disney Plus, like I don't have access to HBO Max, so I'm not going to be able to watch Daredevil Born Again. Personally, I don't think since Stephen DeKnight did the first season on Netflix that Daredevil has been at that level. And don't forget, he didn't wear the costume to the final part of that first season. That was an amazing season. I think Series 2 was okay and Series 3 was okay. But ultimately, that first season that Stephen DeKnight did was the best live-action Daredevil we've ever got. Now, the D+ trailer that was released yesterday is outstanding. But also, there's another situation. In that trailer, we've seen that he's retired from being Daredevil. How long? How many episodes are we going to have to see before he becomes Daredevil again? And this is a serious issue because, let's say, for example, he doesn't put the costume back on because they've already ordered a second series of Born Again. So I'm hoping by at least mid-season, he's Daredevil again. You'll have to tell me because, as I say, I don't have access to Disney Plus or HBO Max or Paramount Plus, and I want to watch Dexter. I want to watch all the Dexter spin-offs, but, how much money can one spend? How much money can one justify? Anyway, This has been today's DCU Daily. I hope you had fun. See you again soon.